Healthcare as a sector isn't just like any other sector. It's not a question of just looking at balance sheets or P&L to define what we want. Healthcare is more than a sector. It's a lifeline. It's a foundation on which families, communities, and economies are built. So when we analyze which businesses that we want to invest in, one of the key things that we look for are scalability. Are these businesses well positioned in fast growth markets? Are they well positioned to emerge as the future giants of the industry? And that really comes down to a number of different things, including, for example, their market share, the scalability of the business, the quality of the management team. But also, are they fixing an unmet medical need? Are they trying to bring high-quality healthcare to as many people as possible at the lowest price? Those are some of the ingredients that we always look for. And that type of innovation is occurring across the healthcare ecosystem within India and more broadly. But what's actually very special about India right now is that there is a move up to value at every segment of healthcare within the ecosystem. So there's significant innovation happening within the pharmaceutical space, but there's also innovation that's happening in the hospital space. And what I mean by innovation there is business model innovation. What India has done remarkably well is that it has proven that you are able to build high-quality hospital systems that served the most underprivileged, that serve people in rural communities. But you can do that in a financially viable way. And that's an eminently exportable business model. And we see that business model innovation now moving to other economies where that unmet medical need still is very, very profound.
We can't talk about innovation in healthcare, and you touched on this, Abrar, without bringing in AI and the tremendous use case in the field of diagnostics. Is that a big part of the plan and the investment focus?
It's a part of the plan. It's a part of the plan. You know, just to be very frank with you, and if I take a step back, technology so far in healthcare has been incremental to the things that we're doing. It's been incremental in terms of the number of people that we're touching. It hasn't been quite as transformative as it has been in some of the other industries. For example, in the retail industry or the hotel industry, it's been absolutely transformative. In healthcare, people still require patient care. People still require interaction with a clinician, still require a prescription. And as a consequence, technology plays that incremental role in being able to reach as many people as possible in a more efficient manner, but it hasn't been transformative yet. So AI within healthcare, I do think, has a great potential, but it hasn't quite played out yet.
What about telemedicine I would imagine the size of the addressable market, to your point, of addressing healthcare needs in rural, remote parts of India really speaks to what could be potentially a massive addressable market in telemedicine. Has that worked out to script?
Look, it is playing out. It takes time. Now, one of the key things is that one of the big advantages that India has is that it is a very mobile country. 80 to 90% of the people still have access to Wi-Fi, have access to technology that enables them to access healthcare. However, there is still a culture in India, as in many other emerging markets, where if people are ill, they'd like and prefer to actually meet with a clinician, to actually go to a hospital even, not even go to primary care. So there is a cultural shift that still needs to happen. There is also a financial shift that needs to happen, particularly within insurance. Insurance right now needs to move up to the curve where telemedicine is fully included, for example, in the payment systems as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, so that goes hand in hand with the importance of financialisation. Pharma has been, and perhaps this is more of an external threat and a challenge, pharma has been really at the sharp end of US tariffs and that narrative. Is the domestic story and the growth opportunities in the healthcare market in India enough to offset any impact from the tariffs, and can healthcare investors be largely agnostic about that threat?
Well, that's a two-part question. I'd actually love to address both. I think first and foremost, what is so attractive about India as an investment destination right now within the healthcare industry is that it has very powerful dynamics at play for domestic demand. It has 1.4 billion people, one of the fastest emerging middle classes, and it has a very high disease burden, and that creates longevity and growth of the healthcare sector, probably for the next generation. So that domestic demand is there. That said, Within the export industry, India has become the pharmacy of the world. Let me give you context. India today produces almost half of all the generic drugs that are consumed today in the US and in Europe. That's significant. India today has more US FDA-approved manufacturing facilities than any other country outside of the US. Now, so to the extent that tariffs are imposed, and that's a fast evolving story, and it's very hard to predict the future. That's the problem with predictions. The fact essentially is that because India has positioned itself extremely well in the production of that medicine, it will be very hard for the US to constrain its cost base if it increases tariffs on pharmaceuticals. Right now, as we understand it, with the tariffs that are at least being contemplated, whether they actually get executed or not, who knows, but the ones that are being contemplated exclude pharmaceuticals. But here's the pivotal moment, and that's how we're thinking about this. The reason we think this is a pivotal moment for the Indian pharmaceutical industry in particular is to create its own ecosystem, to move vertically upwards into innovation, into the more complex injectables area, into the more complex biosimilars area, but also integrate downstream into integrating its own API ecosystem. You know, as the saying goes, if the winds of change blow, you can either build a wall or you can build windmills. And I think this is our opportunity to build the windmills.
And this is really, it's not just pharma where we're seeing this Make in India and broader indigenization push. We're going to be speaking to Kunal Bal about defence tech and how that's being built out within the manufacturing structures in India. And it's a similar story for advanced manufacturing as well. I know that's a work in progress. So does all this imply then, Abrar, that CRDMO, Contract Research Development Manufacturing organisations, and that focus and that thrust is going to continue to be the focus area for Quadria?
It's going to be one of our focus areas. Without a doubt, we believe contract drug manufacturing, contract research, through our investment most recently in Aragen, is extremely well positioned in India. It has access to low-cost development, access to low-cost raw materials, access to low-cost talent. All of that positions it very well. But what's actually very interesting is that increasingly the US and European manufacturers are turning to companies like Aragen for their development. And the engine that we're able to build in Aragen and companies like Aragen will be a great factor for future growth. And I think that also represents some of the essential ingredients that we need in India to be able to actually move up the value chain to innovating some of these drugs ourselves.
I mean, a lot of this speaks to the demographic, aging populations, areas like oncology, diabetes care. I know Maxivision speaks to eye care and hygiene too. What verticals or subsectors are looking most promising in terms of single speciality? Well,
the issue in India, and frankly for most of Asia, is that the chronic disease burden is overwhelming. We in Asia have more diabetics, we have more cancer patients, we have more cardiovascular patients than anywhere else in the world. And if you combine that with a historic underspend in healthcare, that creates a huge demand for these types of services. So we continue to see that play out. Now, as an investor, what do we look for? What we look for are business models that have an essential scalability to them, that are meeting an unmet medical need, that are able to bring in the efficiencies that are required to be able to scale businesses to a level that delivers healthcare in a very humane way, sustainable way, but at the same time can deliver superior economic returns to our investors. And we've seen that play out through, for example, AIG, the Gastric Sciences Hospitals. We're seeing that play out in NephroPlus, our investment in one of Asia's largest dialysis groups. Now NephroPlus, for example, a business model that was built for the India context, has now been exported to the markets in the Philippines, in Nepal, Uzbekistan, and now also in the Middle East.